I'm going to record this class so that I will stick it all online and you guys can revisit the class. Okay, let's get started. Today we're talking about Louis Pasteur, and he this is another old guy, and so his major field of science was microbiology. And every week we talk about what the word ology means, and at this point I'm sure you guys know what the word ology is. So does anyone want to just call
I
it out?
don't know what ology is.
Uh-oh.
Study. The science of.
Yes. So ology means the study of. So microbiology is the study of microbio, kind of. Okay, so it's basically the study of microbiology. And microbiology, does anyone have a guess on what that might be?
Me. Me.
Yes, Daniel?
I think microbiology is like, oh, okay. It's like we study like something micro, like DNA.
Yes, that's a very that was a very good answer. So yes, DNA is a part of microbiology. Colby, do you have something you want to add on?
I think microbiology is also like just like anything living that is very small.
Yes, exactly. So they one part of microbiology is we talk about bacteria, and we talk about other things like bacteria. So something like a virus. And so viruses, bacteria, DNA, those are all very good. Those are all sorry, very good parts of microbiology that we will study. Yeah. So next slide here. Let's talk about, as you guys as I'm sure you guys know, I like to talk about the early life of these people that were exploring. And so Louis Pasteur, he is a Frenchman, so you know they're funny accents and everything. And while I was researching his life, I actually figured out that there were some recordings, but unfortunately, you know, the recordings are from 1822, and so they don't survive today. But have you guys ever heard someone French speak? Okay, well, they have very funny accents. But other
And
than
like SpongeBob, when the starting, like there's a guy who like says something, like he says some stuff.
um, I don't know what you're referencing, but I'm sure you know. But back to Louis here. He was born in December 27th, 1822, in Dole, France. And as I'm sure you guys know, Dole, 1822 was a very long time ago. And let me pull up this map I have here of Dole, France. So can you guys see this? And so this is broadly Europe. Um, and so what we're looking at here is Dole, France is located on the more eastern side of Europe, next to Germany. If you guys know the Rhine River, it runs right through around here. And as you guys go and study history, you will hear a lot about the Rhine River. But anyways, let's go back. So he was born a very long time ago. It's been exactly 200 years since he was born. It's 2022 now, and he was born in 1822. So look at that. Doesn't it just work out? Um, and you know, he was an average student in his early years. He was not an Einstein. And in 1843, he was admitted to a college in Paris. And as I'm sure you guys all will, you know, he was a college student. But at the time, he became a teaching assistant. And does anyone know what a teaching assistant is? Yes, Colby?
It's basically a person who helps the teacher that the student.
Exactly. That is exactly correct. And so he gained significant experience being a teaching assistant. And in 1845, he earned a master's in science. And basically, what it says is that you know he graduated from college and he's now an expert in the field. Um, and he took it one step further. And in 1847, he got a doctorate in sciences. And what's really interesting here is that it only took him 2 years to get a doctorate, which suggests that he was possibly a very good student, right? It also might suggest that, they had less rigorous doctorate training programs, but we don't have to worry about that. Did I see a raised hand? Billy, did you raise your hand? Hello, Billy?
I did. I raised a hand.
Okay, well, do you have a question?
No.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought I saw you raise your hand, but that's fine. And Daniel, do you have a question?
It's a
No? Okay. People are just raising hands for the fun of raising their hands. Fine. So Louis Pasteur was very, very influential in both his time and our time. Does anyone love milk? Okay, we have some so-sos, we have some yeses. Anthony, you
It
what?
depends what type of milk.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I don't
depends.
like plain milk.
Okay. But the reason why we can drink milk is thanks to Louis and his work, right? So okay, we'll get to pasteurization in a second. Let's talk about fermentation first. Has anyone ever had kimchi? No. Oh, some head
I
shakes.
don't know what it is.
Okay, that's fine. Has anyone ever had pickles?
Yeah, I like pickles.
You
I
like
don't either.
Okay, well, does everyone know what
I
pickles are?
Yeah, they're weird green plant things.
Okay, yeah, some people like pickles and some people are chatting, ew, gross. So it appears that everyone at least knows what pickles are, okay? And so they're these green cucumber things. And everyone is familiar with the kind of sour taste of pickles, right? They're kind of crunchy, they're kind of sour, they're kind of salty. Sometimes you put them on hamburger or a hot dog. But pickles get
Those are cucumbers.
Yes, pickles are cucumbers. But what happens is you put the cucumbers into this sort of liquid, and the process is called fermentation. The cucumbers, they begin to ferment. And once they're done fermenting, they turn into these pickles. So fermentation transforms cucumbers into pickles. And fermentation is what gives those pickles that kind of sourish kind of taste. Has everyone knows what wine is, right? Yes.
Yeah.
I sure hope none of you have had it, but you guys all understand that there's alcohol in wine, right?
Yeah.
Yes. And so that alcohol comes from the fermenting of grapes. What they do to make red wine is that they ferment the grapes, and the grapes, they turn into this kind of sour liquidish thing, and we call that wine. And when the fermentation process happens, alcohol is produced, and that is how wine has alcohol in it. And so the official kind of definition for fermentation is the breakdown of substances by bacteria, yeasts, or other microorganisms. And typically alcohol is produced. And so that's what's happening to the grapes, right? Those grapes, wine producers, they go and pick the grapes, they put them in a batch, and then over time, bacteria and other microorganisms, they're going to break down those grapes. And those grapes will eventually, it'll turn into wine. And in that wine, there's the alcohol that is right here, that is produced by those microorganisms. Does anyone have any questions on fermentation? Okay.
What liquid do they put in?
Sorry.
Someone else is talking.
I'm okay. I'm not sure who was speaking there. Daniel, do you want to lead with your question?
What?
Do you want to go? Do you want to ask your question?
Yeah. So my question was, what do they put, whatever they put in it what liquid do they put in for the fermentation?
For the pickles,
Yeah, the fermentation.
yes. Wait, for fermentation of cucumbers or fermentation of wine?
Fermentation of everything.
So it depends on what you're trying to make, right? Imagine if you put the liquid to ferment cucumbers. Imagine if you tried fermenting grapes like you do for pickles. You'd end up with a mess, right? It's like me, instead of drinking the water, I pour it on my head. It's not going to work, right? So it's like, okay, does that make sense? Each process of fermentation has its own little like specific way of doing things. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So good. So the microorganisms that are in here in the pickle water, they're different from the microorganisms in the grape wine water. Does that make sense? Okay, hopefully that makes sense. And yes, Leo, do you have a question?
Could you fermentate yogurt?
Could you fermentate yogurt?
Yeah.
You definitely can. Yes, you definitely can. That is a good question, Leo. I will go in here and look at the questions in the chat.
Something happened.
Uh-oh.
There's like a remaining time thing.
Oh, yes, I will talk about that in a second. Yes, Ethan?
Can you fermentate bread?
Well, here's the thing. You can fermentate anything. I just don't know whether or not it's
even your eyeball.
As I said, you can fermentate anything, but it will not taste good. Does that make sense? People will only fermentate things that they think taste good. Some people like pickles, which is why pickles are fermented. Some people like wine, which is why we fermentate wine. I've never heard of anyone liking fermented bread. So hopefully that answers your question.
Why do they want to make it bad?
Why do they want to make it bad?
Like fermentate.
Why do they want to fermentate it?
Well, it changes the taste, right? And some people so think of cucumbers, right? So normally cucumbers are they're kind of crisp. They taste kind of like water. But after you fermentate them, they taste like pickles. They're sour, they're salty. And so people mainly fermentate them for the taste. Yes, so hopefully that answers your question. Leo, do you have a question?
That was old Tim.
Okay, and Ethan, do you have a question?
I forgot to take it down.
Okay, don't worry about it. Let me just check the chat quickly. And we can't drink spoiled milk. Yes, garbage. My friend likes yes. Wine, not good. I always long to drink wine. Okay, we got some alcoholics in here. Great. You guys
What?
okay, you guys okay.
You're a kid. Wait,
Okay, please stay muted, Daniel. I'm trying to get through the chat so we can move on. It is against the law for kids to drink wine. Yes, that is correct. We have some spam, some question marks. Let's avoid the scribble.io. Thank you. Let me take a second to address the 7 minutes we have in this meeting. When that timer runs out, you guys please go to the same meeting link and I will just set up the meeting again and then we will rejoin and then I will continue the class. But hopefully I can get done with all the lecturing in this 6 minutes, 45 seconds that I've left. So please, if you don't have a question, feel free to not interrupt. Okay. So the second process that we'll talk about is pasteurization. And so pasteurization is the process that kills the bacteria in milk and eggs and other dairy products. So like yogurt, it is
Wait,
pasteurized.
I have another question.
Okay. Yes, Daniel.
What does this have to do with milk and Louis?
Sorry, what?
How does this have to do with how does this have to do with milk and Louis?
Okay, so Louis Pasteur, as you can see in the name pasteurization, his last name is in pasteurization. He discovered this process. So he realized that if you heat milk really quickly, it kills the bacteria inside the milk. And then in industrial processes where they do this in factories, they heat the milk very quickly and then they cool it down slowly. And that is how the bacteria in the milk are killed. And so it extends the period of time for which you can store milk. If you don't pasteurize the milk, well, then you can only store it for like a couple days, because then it'll go bad. But if you pasteurize it, you kill all the bacteria in it, well, then you can store it for much longer periods of time. And so pasteurization is named after Louis Pasteur. Let me get to the next slide and you guys can ask any questions you have on pasteurization, okay? Let me get to this. So this is germ theory. This is the other big topic that Louis Pasteur worked on. So a very long time ago, before the 1800s, people believed that you got sick because there was an imbalance in your body. Does that make sense? There were evil spirits in your body and you didn't have enough good in your body. And people are shaking their head, which is good. Now we know that diseases come from microorganisms. Imagine if I were to go out and say that COVID-19 happened because I had too much bad energy in my body. You guys will laugh at me, right? Yeah, well, 200 years ago, that is exactly what they thought. And so Pasteur, he believed that diseases come from microorganisms, and we now know that to be true. But a very long time ago, we didn't know that. And so what he did was he looked at things under the microscope. He exposed people to different types of things. And slowly but surely, he began to realize that the large majority of diseases were not from imbalance in the human body or anything. They were coming from microorganisms. And there was a process called bloodletting. Does anyone know what bloodletting is? Yes, Colby?
Yeah.
It's like when they just cut you and then you just bleed.
Exactly. So bloodletting was the process where the doctors think, you have bad stuff in your blood. And so they cut you open and they let you bleed, which is, I don't want to say it's a bad thing, but, generally losing blood is not a good thing. So it definitely didn't help a lot of people. Yes, Caitlin, did you have a question?
I was going to say, why did they cut their bodies instead of like they do something else to look inside their body? Like,
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
why do like those people cut their bodies instead of like they use X-rays to look inside their body?
Okay, well, the issue is this is 200 years ago. They don't really have, advanced medicine. They don't have very good x-rays. This is the era of time where people thought that diseases come from bad spirits in the body. So remember that we're talking about the 1800s here. This is very early medicine. Yes, but back to Louis Pasteur. He realizes that, bacteria are the cause of diseases and whatnot. And so in France in the 1800s, there was the silk industry. And so all the silkworms that produced the silk were being killed by bacteria. And so by realizing that, bacteria were attacking the silkworms, he goes, let me save these poor little worms. And so that's exactly what he does. He goes and he saves a worm worms, and he saves the silk industry in France. And so that's just another one of his many, many accomplishments. Let me stop my screen share. I'm going to take the last, minute or so to look at the chat quickly. It doesn't look like there are any questions. So does anyone have any questions like right here? Yes, Leo?
Why was there a person who had a bird mask on the picture?
Yes, I probably should talk about that for a second. Let's see here. So this guy with the bird mask, he's a plague doctor. So this guy's one of the doctors.
I think I know him. I think I heard him on YouTube. I think
Okay.
he's like an SMP or something.
Okay, one sec, Daniel. We're about to run out of time here. But this guy, so he's a plague doctor. He's one of the doctors that believes that imbalance in the human body creates disease. And so he's wearing this, creepy costume to scare off the diseases, as crazy as that sounds. But yeah, that's a plague doctor. We have less than a minute left. So if you guys can leave and rejoin the same link, we'll come back and we'll do a Kahoot. I will answer